crazy because it's just like, I think our history was taught in a way where it's so demonizing, and it does make like kids of all races feel really bad. And I do think it instills bias and hatred in young Black Americans, which is like, I could not think of something unhealthier to do at such a young age.
I grew up in a small, rural, conservative hometown where 99% of the white people there were so nice to me. But once I left my hometown and I went to college and I started joining these like Black studies groups and ethnic studies classes, then all of a sudden I started feeling like, oh, white people are so mean and oppressive to me. And it's like the way that got indoctrinated into my head, even at the age of 18, clearly was because of systemic racism. So Emily, I want to ask you the question that's been pressing on everybody's hearts. Why is it that we have not yet seen a Pride event in Gaza?
I mean, from what I've seen in documentaries I've been watching, I don't think they have access to the clothing they would need that would be appropriate.
Shouldn't leadership step in? Shouldn't the leadership of the Palestinian Authority step in to lead a Pride event in Gaza?
Yeah, there should be one.
Yeah.
They should take after the Olympics, and they should show some pride in their country. And they should also have a Pride Day as well there. But I feel like the Pride, you show a lot of skin, so it's going to be hard over there.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, some people are like a little afraid that a Pride event would just like be a parade that goes off a cliff, but I just don't know where they get that from.
I guess the Pride event there would be one way to definitely, you know, put yourself out in the open as the next person on the list that they're going to go after. So I did watch a documentary where they were over there and they were asking them, like, because when they ask about gay marriage, usually they laugh because it's like such an insane concept to even like ask about. But then it's weird because you'll see influencers on TikTok being like, actually, it's like super accepted there. And it's like, okay, so go there and wrap yourself in a pride flag and walk around. Let's see what happens. If it's so accepted. Okay.
So Emily, another question for you. What is it like to have white privilege?
I wouldn't know because I don't believe in it.
Oh. Would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, I would.
But doesn't being like blonde and from Los Angeles and white mean that you come from just like endless wealth and power and abundance and Caucasian discounts?
Yeah, according to everyone online, I come from tons of money that I've never seen, and apparently I've never worked before, according to all the jobs I've had. But yeah, that's something I don't believe in. One, the hair's fake, so anyone can dye their hair blonde. If being blonde means that you have a sense of privilege, then I guess you have white privilege as well, don't you?
I love my white privilege.
And the only privilege I would say is they say blondes have more fun, and I think that's true. So maybe having fun is a privilege. But yeah, I don't believe that because of the color of my skin, I've never had to work or ever. You know, I don't deserve the things I have. I think that's a really toxic thing to put out there. And I think the people that do believe that, it comes from a sense of failure on their end to achieve things. So instead of being like, why am I not on her level or someone else's level? It's easy just to say like, oh, she just had it easier, instead of the fact that, you know, people close to me know how hard I've worked to be here. But I don't think, you know, the color of my skin should ever have to do with anything. The same way I would never look at someone else and assume they got where they are because of the color of their skin.
Yes, I'm learning how to do manual labor, because if Trump doesn't build the wall, I'm gonna build it myself. In the time being, I'm building the set for my new show, Respectfully Xavier, live on January 23rd. Because I'm not blue-collared, I'm gold-lapelled. Do not have me doing all this work for nothing. Subscribe so you never miss an episode of Respectfully Xavier. They're about to be like, he almost just failed.
Well, you know, the second that, because, you know, I agree with you, but, you know, the second that you say that being white doesn't give you privilege, they're going to say that we're both white supremacists.
Yeah, I mean, I get called that every day, so it's okay. It's also weird, too, because I was thinking about this and I wanted to post videos, but it's like, obviously the backlash you get as a white person saying anything online is insane, just because I've seen like an insane amount of racism online that's specifically people of color towards white people the past couple of months with controversy going on with some influencers. And it's crazy because I was thinking about it and I'm like, okay, in my entire life, every time I've ever heard someone accuse someone else of being racist, and obviously there is, of course, racism, it exists, there's racist people. I personally, controversial opinion, I think everybody is a little racist, and I think there's genuine like different levels to it. But it's like I've worked in kitchens with Mexican cooks that say crazy things. I've been in nail salons where they say crazy things. I've heard black people say crazy things, white people say crazy things. I've heard Indian people say racist things. So it's like I believe everyone's a little racist, but also I believe that of course there's levels to it. But it's just like I've never ever heard someone online get canceled for being racist except for a white person. So it's almost like white people are the only people capable of being racist. And it's like when I see people go after them online because of things they said, I'm like, that's really confusing to me because it's like, you're telling me you've never, as a person of color, you've never had a racist thought and you've never said something racist out loud. Like, in no world do I believe that. I just feel like we take the heat for all of it because like white people will lose their jobs and get canceled. And, you know, people will threaten them online if they do say racist things. But it's like, how come it's only white people? I don't think white people are the only racist people. But yeah, of course, I don't believe in white privilege. I think it's silly. I believe in pretty privilege.
What is pretty privilege?
I believe if you're an attractive female, you're going to get, and you present yourself a certain way, it's going to open many more doors than a girl who's maybe not considered, you know, traditionally attractive. I think that's fair. I don't think using my skin color against me is fair. I think using the way I look against me is fair. I'll give people that.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
I feel like a thing that you get hated for online so much is that you identify patterns, because it's not even that you're being racist or being prejudiced in any way. It's like you are identifying patterns that happen in particular communities that love nothing more than to group themselves together. But then when you are like, okay, well, you all grouped yourselves together and this is what you guys are doing together, then you're the villain.
Yeah, well, there's no winning. God forbid you're like white and you state like a crime statistic or you say anything. Literally, it's like, God forbid you say anything. It's like, it's immediately because you're racist, but it's like, okay, so what if I have seen all these patterns and I'm starting to see what all these things have in common? And in my mind, I'm like, okay, how about this? If we call out these patterns in communities and we actually just ask them to do better, maybe, like, my thing is like, stop giving people a reason to be racist. You know what I mean? Stop giving them a reason. If you guys don't like the stereotypes, then you need to stop behaving that way. And it's like, also, like, people are allowed to have personal experiences as well and take those into account. So it's like weird to like completely discredit people and be like, yeah, white people have never ever experienced racism. No one's ever been racist to them. Of course they have. I've experienced a ton of it in my life. I didn't grow up just around white people, and I was working in environments where those stereotypes are true and they don't exist. So it's like, if I were to help the community, I'd be like, stop fitting those so people cannot attack you for these.
And you know, it's all fun and games debating with a BLM activist until you bring up crime statistics. Then it's like the whole conversation's over.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't understand why, like, people need to stop separating like facts and ideas from people's personal opinions. If I'm stating these things, people are like, you're racist. And I'm like, okay, so give me one thing I said that was hateful, blatantly hateful towards the community. You can't. And also, it's like, aren't I calling that out and demanding more of you because I think you're better? Instead of just letting you dig your own hole, crawl into it. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want you guys to have to like go through that and feel that way. That sucks. Because if I was in that position, I wouldn't want people to treat me that way and it would suck. So it's like, so do better then. So stop giving people a reason to be stereotypical and treat you that way. It's not that hard. It's like, really, it's not. All groups have stereotypes and a lot of them are really true. Like, there's a reason, you know what stereotypes come from. It's like a group of people and people notice patterns in those people, so they mention things about them.
Don't duck if it doesn't apply. That's what I always say.
And there's positive stereotypes and there's negative ones.
I mean, I've been talking about the Asian community a lot lately because I don't understand why the Asian community is not more unapologetic. And that's the bad part. It's like people are always like, they'll talk about race and then they'll be like, okay, well, excluding Asians. Why? Because Asian culture actually has their stuff together.
Yeah.
They have the least amount of big-backed obesity people. They have the least amount of pronoun warriors. They have the highest employment rate, the lowest unemployment rate. They are top earners in the country, among the most educated. Like, literally every good metric that there is to have, the Asian community is just running laps around us. And you know why? Because they're not constantly focused on the injustices of the past or worried about what Genghis Khan did hundreds of years
And
ago.
like maybe open a history book and look at how Asian people were treated in the past and stop acting like the only people that have ever been, oppressed or enslaved were Black people in America. I'm like, every group of people on this planet, and Elon Musk was talking about it, has been enslaved. Of course, Black people was more recently, but that doesn't mean it was worse. You know what I mean? Like everyone throughout history was treated poorly. But what are you gonna do about it? You gonna cry about it today and tomorrow? Like, how's that gonna benefit you and your community? The difference is Asians go to school and they work hard and they make good lives for themselves, and they're not online being social justice warriors or burning down their cities.
Well, Emily, would you like to apologize to me for slavery?
No, because I didn't own slaves, and I don't right now. That is crazy. That is like that to guilt trip a white person who I currently don't own slaves. I have no plans in my future on it. But to guilt trip a white person that has nothing to do with something, neither does their family most likely. And who knows, like what they were we were probably poor white people as well. I mean, my family's Irish. We weren't treated that great in the past. And we've been in America a long time, but it's like not like my family was balling out like on plantations with slaves. Like absolutely none. That's not the case for a lot of people. And it's so silly. So you teach like kids like to like hate themselves, like to hold an innocent like little white kid, be like, hey, slavery was because of you. Like, how is that good? And also, how is it good for the Black child next to him to be like, hey, you should hate him because of something you had no part of and neither did he? Like, that's horrific. It's horrific for everyone involved, honestly.
And it's just so unfactual because the more you look into slavery, it's like majority of people, even in the South, did not own slaves. Most white people come from a long lineage of poverty and people who were working just regular jobs. They didn't own massive plantations like a handful of people did. And most of the slaves that we had in America were on like they were big groups on the main plantations. If you weren't from that lineage, slavery probably had nothing to do with you. You might have been more poor than some of the rich Black people who lived in the South at the time. Because trust me, a lot of people also don't realize a lot of Black people in the South were rich during slavery and had slaves themselves. But I don't know. History books just don't reflect that these days.
This thing, I was like, oh, my grandparents were independent fishermen. So please tell me how we were these wealthy people that contributed to this horrible part of the past. It makes no sense. And I'm like, yeah. And also, I'm like, if you guys are so upset, shouldn't you be upset at your own ancestors who decided to sell you to America? Why are you upset with me? I wasn't part of the slave trade. Like, absolutely not. That's so crazy. Be upset at them. They thought that that's what they thought of you and that's what they did. But I don't know, what does that have to do with me today?
Literally.
I'm like on my way to work and now I'm responsible for slavery. It is crazy because it's just like, I think our history was taught in a way in schools where it's so demonizing, and it does make like, not even white kids, I guess kids of all races feel really bad. And I do think it instills like some sort of like bias and hatred in young Black Americans, which is like, I could not think of something unhealthier to do at such a young age. You know what I mean? Like, we focus so much on that topic, and it's a big deal and a part of our history, and it always will be. But also, it's like, there's so many other things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think we spent we spent one day learning about like the Holocaust, but then we spent like weeks on slavery.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, both were horrible. Numbers wise, it was definitely different, but it's just like, as soon as you try to talk about that as well, it's because you love slavery, you're a white supremacist, you're all these things. And I'm like, this is really exhausting. I don't see anything productive coming from this. I think we need to teach it more accurately as well, with less emotions involved and like how horrible white people were. And I also think it's weird to judge people on the past when in the past, unlike now, where you can be an American and do whatever you want and you can be a freaking influencer and, do these crazy jobs that like are so silly and they're, you get paid really well and you could have an easy life. It's like back in the day, you're talking about, it's not like it was like own slaves and be racist or become an online influencer. People act like there was like a plethora of jobs they could do and all these different ways they could go about life. And it's like, you need to understand, back then that was normal.
Yeah.
So you can't demonize people in the past who knew nothing else. I'm sure deep down a lot of people were like, hey, this is messed up. But what were they going to do? And also, like, how many white people fought so to end slavery and died for it as well.
Right.
How often have you heard that talked about? None.
Well, way more white people fought to end slavery in America and died because of it than probably even owned slaves, if we're really looking at history that way. And it's crazy. I grew up in a small, rural, conservative hometown where 99% of the white people there were so nice to me. But once I left my hometown and I went to college and I started joining these like black studies groups and ethnic studies classes, then all of a sudden I started feeling like, oh, white people are so mean and oppressive to me. And it's like the way that got indoctrinated into my head, even at the age of 18, where these people really had me convinced like, okay, a white person was mean to you when you were 10. It clearly was because of systemic racism.
Yeah.
It's like, let's just disregard every opportunity, every nice thing, every kind gesture
Every good
that a white person has
interaction.
done. Yeah. Then same thing with police officers. Majority of my interactions with police officers are so nice.
Yeah, mine as well.
Especially like when you're black these days and a police officer pulls you over, just being respectful has gotten me out of so many tickets, because I feel like a lot of the times police officers are nervous to pull over black people because it's like, oh, here we go. It's like I say one wrong thing, I don't pull out my ID or whatever fast enough. It's like it's just going to be an escalated situation. But I'm kind, I'm respectful, I'm gracious. I know at the end of the day, they're just trying to keep citizens safe. And by being respectful, more often than not, I get away without a ticket. And I am a terrible driver. You've been in the car with me.
I'm aware.
I should be in jail with no license, realistically, with the way that I drive. But police officers are kind to me. Why? Because I'm not an ignorant clown who's like, oh, you pulled me over because I'm black. It's like, no, bro. It's like you were going 90 miles an hour. You switched lanes 3 times with no signal.
It's like the list could go on. It's kind of crazy because I see like so many things. I'm like, I think we forget with a lot of these issues with police. Like, of course there's racist cops and of course there's bad cops, but there's those groups of people everywhere in the world. But it's funny because as a white woman who apparently all the cops are just like flocking to me and love me, according to people online, it's like, no. The second I've been disrespectful to cops, they've hit me with tickets, fines, and they've been horrible to me. But that's the thing. It's like because they just want to feel safe and they want respect. So why not just give them that? But it's like every issue, every like video I see, I'm like, does the community understand that resisting arrest in itself is like a crime?
Literally.
Because of all the things that stem from that. But they act like every time online a black person resists arrest, it's like totally justified. It's like, no, that in itself is a crime that makes things escalate to the point of bad things happen. And then I think cops get a lot of the blame. Like that's a big deal.
Right.
That's a huge deal. If they just stopped that alone, we would have a lot of improvements. Like, that's huge.
Right.
It's a big deal. It's dangerous.
And it sucks because police get so much hate. It's like now they're literally not even allowed to do their own jobs.
Yeah, they're
like
scared.
we were just in Venice and we were with our friends and that were telling us about the whole crime scene that happened out there. Homeless man goes, hits one woman over the head with a glass bottle, literally rapes her, kills her, knocks another girl out, and police get told, hey, we found the murder weapon in the trash can. Would you like to come pick it up? And they're like, okay, there's nothing we can do with it. It's like, what? Yeah. And then people are like, okay, so you're agreeing that the police are doing a good job. It's like, no, they're not allowed to do their jobs.
That's a big
That's the difference.
thing to differentiate.
Yeah.
We're not saying that cops are bad and they're not doing their job. We're saying that the district attorneys, who are extremely, far left, are not allowed to. They're not allowed to do their jobs because of them, and they can actually potentially get in trouble because of them. They'll get in worse trouble than some of the criminals at this point. And yeah, I don't. And also, like, people forget that when they say crime is down, no, crime isn't being reported because, as we experienced last week, when it takes 2 police stations nearby, it takes 3.5 hours for the cops to come, and then you have to go to the police station and you'll file a report. Most normal people have jobs. Yeah. And they don't have an entire day to write a police report. And then even then, what's going to happen? They're going to be out in 24 hours.
Literally.
Because of our district attorneys.
Yeah, I'm still not over earlier this year when I had this insane death threat, like send me my own address and all this stuff about how they're basically on their way to mutilate me.
Yeah.
I go to the police station. I'm talking to a detective who's a huge PragerU fan, funny enough. But he pretty much tells me, he goes, yeah, based on our policy, I literally can't do anything until he shows up at your house. I'm like, okay.
They told me until you are physically harmed, there's nothing we can do. So I'm like, so an innocent female has to be sexually assaulted for you guys to even start to do something. So I have to be hurt. So this guy gets put away. Like, sorry, that's why I obviously don't agree with a lot of the activists for like homeless. It's like, yeah, it's like these people are really dangerous and specifically dangerous to women. And that's why when people say crime is down, no, crime is not down. It's not being reported, especially because police are understaffed. And yeah, most people don't have 24 hours to do a police report. They have lives and they have things to do and jobs. Shocking.
Well, my theory on it is I feel like the reason that they're not actually, it's the same thing with homelessness. My theory is that they are not actually fighting crime or fighting homelessness because it's way more profitable to pretend like you are. Like, let's talk about these $500 million with a B, $500 million grants that they're giving towards combating homelessness in California. Yet when you go and you look at the accounting that they're doing, they're spending like $500 on one screw to do something. It's like, what?
Yeah.
But there's all this profit, all these grants of we're gonna crack down on fighting crime and homelessness and get the encampments out. No, you're not. You're literally doing nothing. And then you're the bad guy when you're saying that you don't want to justify these criminals and homeless people just wreaking havoc all over LA. And that's literally what they're doing.
They're taking advantage of us and our systems.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have lived very close to Skid Row for almost 8 years now, so it's not like I can not speak on these things. I think I had a business next to it as well, and I've seen how these homeless people can wreak such havoc on your family businesses that you literally have to shut down because it becomes such an issue with, first of all, like if you're a female, it's extremely dangerous. So like, first, people are too scared to come to our store. Then they're too scared to walk because they have to go by Skid Row. Well, then you have to, unfortunately, can't keep the door open. So people have to be buzzed in. Then you need a system for that. I've had, homeless women walking carrying bleach in their hands next to $100,000 worth of clothing. You give them money, then they come back every day. The second you don't give them money, they turn on you. I've had them smear their own feces on our windows, which the only person who had to get it off was us, unfortunately. And then they get extremely violent. And also, a lot of the prisoners they dump out in downtown LA, they then basically they go straight to Skid Row. So I've had a guy very scary, like looking at me at 2 a.m. when I was in my store working, shaking the door, being like, the second you get out here, like he couldn't wait to go right back. Right. And I'm like, so what would have happened to me? I mean, I had to have my brother and dad, like, thank God, all these things, but it's like, well, what if he got in? What would have happened?
Right.
He could have easily assaulted and murdered me. So it's just this thing, I strongly disagree, because there's a lot of facts behind it, of this far left thing where the more money you dump into something, the better the problem will get. That is proven to be absolutely not true at all. Right. To me, it's very shady. It's not making sense. And these people need to start we need transparency, and they need to be held accountable for all this money that they're spending, which is our money. I mean, there's so much land in California. You could build these things anywhere. Why are they in Santa Monica on prime real estate? It makes no sense. And, I don't believe, low-income housing, I don't believe you need amenities. Like, they shouldn't be chilling in their amenities all day. They should be going and getting a job.
But then people will tell you that you're inhumane because you're not caring enough about the quality of life of homeless people. Trust me, I'm an empathetic person, but I'm paying $3,000 a month for a 1-bedroom to rent in Los Angeles. Please do not tell me I'm a bad person because I don't want a homeless person setting dumpsters and Christmas trees on fire right in front of my door. Like, that's insane. And people are paying $50 million for a nice house in Santa Monica. And who's their neighbor? Yeah. Oh, a homeless person in a $500,000 condo that you now have to go and look at. And if you decide to go on a walk and walk your dog, make sure you're looking out for the heroin needles that are all over the streets that a lot of these officials love to give the needles to because they think that that's a safer way to take care of them. Because instead of getting them into rehab, instead of getting them to clean up their lives, it's like, no, let's make it easier and safer and more healthy for them to do heroin and make meth their favorite habit.
And it's crazy because it's like, this is probably more controversial of an opinion, but I believe it's the correct one and it's mine. And I think the far left people, which they do to me every day, they try to fight you on when you disagree with them about topics like this. You're not a good person. I actually, I have a leveled empathy, but I actually think it doesn't make you a bad person to not 100% feel for these people, or maybe not at all. I actually think it's a very normal thing to actually be like, this isn't my problem and my issue. I don't deserve to deal with this. And I'm actually going to focus on what's best and keeping me and my family with food on the table and safe. I actually am so tired of the gaslighting of the far left of being like, oh, you're a bad person. You don't care about homeless. You should want them to live in condos that you'll never afford, blah, blah. Actually, I think it's perfectly okay to be like, I want it away from me. I want to be safe and I want my family to be protected and I'm going to focus on me and them. I actually don't think you need to be a social justice warrior. It's actually not fair to gaslight and shame people like that.
Period.
I think it's okay to be like, I actually don't, I don't care. There's nothing. What is a normal person going to do about it? Billions of dollars and it's never been worse and you didn't do anything about it, but you're going to go gaslight some random person on social media because they haven't done something about it? What are they supposed to do? If you really feel that way, you should go house them yourself. And let's be real. Anywhere there's homeless people, crime goes up, there's drug addicts, they're on the street. Like, let's just be so real about it. It becomes a bad place. Like, okay, if homeless people benefit us, then go live on Skid Row. Let me know how beautiful it is.
You know, Emily, there is one thing I have to let you know. There's one thing you've ever said to me that was truly racist. And one time you said, good morning. Play the clip.
Do you know why you say the term good morning? Let's take it back to the plantation. Good morning was a term that the slave master used when a slave was unalived and the other slaves were in a state of grief, when they were in a state of mourning. They were crying, they were sad. To further taunt the rest of the slaves, the slave master would say, good morning. And then he would want them to say it back. This is why I do not say the term good morning. We say grand risings, rich risings, abundant risings, glorious risings. We do not want to use that verbiage. Mourning literally means sadness.
These people are just making stuff up at this point.
I wish I had this much time and energy. Okay, so first of all, she's saying the term is good morning. Good morning. Morning, I'm pretty sure by definition is like morning, the time of day. Not to say she's unintelligent, but she is saying morning as in like after someone were to die. So she's using the wrong word. And then where are you getting this information?
Right.
Here's the thing. Were you there? Were you there when this happened? Is this a reliable source? I mean, did you personally go through this? And also, you know what? This is why white people are exhausted, because it's like, okay, so when we're nice, okay, so when we're mean to you, you're upset. And now when we say good morning and we're nice to you and we're greeting you, do you think a normal white person, when we go good morning, is like, hey, so remember during slavery when they were doing this and they were tortured and then he would come in and be like, good morning, you know what I mean, as you're done. Do you really, in your heart of hearts, think a normal white person saying hi to you is genuinely ever, I have never heard this in my life until this video. That is clinically insane. You are literally nuts if you think that, and therefore anything else you say doesn't even matter to me. To live in a state of insanity and level of victim like this is actually crazy. First of all, before you're upset, you need to use the right word. morning, not mourning. So maybe, open a freaking encyclopedia and then start there.
Being white sounds stressful as hell.
Well, yeah, look, morning. Well, okay.
I'm triggered.
Okay, slave master.
You know what? Interview's done.
Yeah,
I'm
sure I'm
triggered.
done. But also, what do you want from us? It's like, so literally, when we're nice, you hate us. So here's the thing. I kind of just assume you're kind of racist and hate white people, because even when we say good morning, you were like, ah, you know what I mean? It's like there's no winning anymore. You know what? Okay, so your goal is that we just never interact. Okay, well then don't get mad when, what are we supposed, good rising. I would honestly, if I was black and a white person randomly was like, good rising, I would be like, now maybe you're racist. That's weird. Why would you? Like, I would think that's even more weird, because I'm like, why are you treating me like this is like a yoga session or something?
It's like, pick a struggle, boo.
Yeah, literally. Like, I can't even imagine like what her whole day must be like.
Full of oppression.
Imagine if I was like, good night. She's like, it's because I have dark skin, right? It's nighttime. You're like, oh, I'm out. Never mind,
Emily, let's go get an Air One smoothie.
Yes, I'm learning how to do manual labor, because if Trump doesn't build the wall, I'm gonna build it myself. In the time being, I'm building the set for my new show, Respectfully Xavier, live on January 23rd. Because I'm not blue-collared, I'm gold-lapelled. Do not have me doing all this work for nothing. Subscribe so you never miss an episode of Respectfully Xavier.
They're about to be like, he almost just failed.